All right, well, without further ado, I think I will get started just so we can kind of keep on schedule. And if you guys have seen me before, if you haven't, so you know, I'm pretty relaxed. So if you have any questions, it's also a small group, just feel free to jump in. I won't answer any questions.
You might want to open that door.
Yeah, oh yeah?
Yeah.
So for the, to let breathe, oh, okay. I get to be,
for you, actually.
I get to be kind of loud, so I don't want to disturb anybody, but no, good call. So today we are talking about how to pass a home inspection. So advice for home sellers when dealing with a home inspection. Both when you're having a home inspection done by a buyer or if you're doing one preemptively for a pre-inspection. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself for those who haven't met me yet. Michael Schmidt, I'm the Toronto Area Director, Housemaster Home Inspections. I'm also the franchise owner. So I own Downtown Toronto franchise. So basically, Eglinton to the water, Victoria Park to Humber, that's my marketing area. But I work everywhere. So I go from Hamilton to Whitby, from downtown Toronto up to Vaughan. I was just in Vaughan this morning. So I go where you guys go. But my marketing area is downtown Toronto. My home office is Bloor and Dufferin area. And I have a couple of kids. My wife, she works in film. We own a house over in that area, Bloor and Dufferin. And my kids go to school at Dewson and Delta Alternative. And I also own a rental property in Hamilton. That's kind of how I got into the business. So what we're going to talk about is today's agenda, kind of what people are looking for in the home, real estate market, reality check, a beyond pass or fail, how we look at a home inspection objectively, setting the stage as a home seller, the big day, what is actually going to happen during the home inspection, what's next after those results come back, dealing with the results, you know, potentially there could be something that's found, how to best position yourself after that, and then getting proactive, in other words, doing a pre-inspection yourself as a seller. Okay, so today's home buyers, what are they concerned about? They're concerned, oh, sorry, do we?
I think they just let out a little bit.
So they're concerned about home values, particularly like in this climate. You know, we had large increases last year. Now things have kind of become a bit more balanced, but of course people are concerned with price if they can afford to get into the market. More and more, particularly this year, they're insisting on a professional home inspection. To give you an idea of my workload, last week I did 12 home inspections. Last year, for the entire month of May, I did 12 home inspections. So last year was a lot less busy. People are becoming, are really demanding home inspection. Maybe you've heard of it. People went in without conditions and they found problems later. So more and more people have heard those stories. More and more people are getting proactive about home inspection. Many people expect to negotiate findings. So I might find something big, people want it. You should anticipate that as seller. What can I fix or be able to position in a way or price the house at the right price that I don't have to deal with those findings. They increasingly take their time. You're mentioning this, Ernie. Clients taking their time, or they have to take their time. They don't get the offer. So then they have to move on to the next house. But they do want to buy a home. They wouldn't be employing you guys. They wouldn't be looking if they didn't want to buy, right? So let's help them out. So no home will pass or fail. So this is called how to pass a home inspection, and I'm going to give you a few tricks to talk about. But it is kind of a misnomer that you can pass or fail a home inspection. It should, there's no home is all good, no home is all bad. All homes are going to have their issues. Housemaster, we've done 3 million home inspections since we started. We're about 300 offices throughout North America. We see a lot of stuff. A few years ago, we did a survey of about 5,000 homes. We find about 40% of all homes have at least one significant defect, and that includes new homes. So if you're thinking of Toronto, we have 100-year-old homes, 75-year-old homes, you know, very old homes. Almost all the homes I encounter have at least one significant thing. And significant thing could mean the furnace is past 20 years. You know, the roof needs to be reshingled. We think of that as being significant, but at least, because they are a significant expense, but at least one major thing in downtown Toronto homes. So when I'm doing a home inspection, I am looking at the major elements of the property. I'm not looking at cosmetic defects, really don't pay attention to that. I don't mention cracks in walls unless I think they're dealing with structure. To the point is that I am going to come across some things that are going to end up in the report. So it's good to be prepared for that. And it's good for you to prepare your clients for that, both from a buyer's perspective and from a seller's. Sellers in particular, and when I have an opportunity, I try to sit down with them before I start the home inspection and tell them what this is about and why we're doing this. Because they take it personally. It's their house. They've taken care of it. It's their property. And they're sensitive about it, and that's totally understandable. So getting them a heads up that there are going to be defects that are going to be found and reported, and why we're doing that is a good idea to get out in front of. And it's an educational opportunity for the home buyer. So part of the reason people get a home inspection is to know the condition. Another reason, particularly with first-time home buyers, is to understand how to operate the furnace, how to change the filter, where you turn off the water in case there's a leak or something like that. Okay, so what a seller needs to know. I talked about this just a little bit briefly, but more specifically, what a seller needs to know. This is what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a home inspection. The big issues. So usually, generally, a home inspection lasts between 2 and 3 hours. I would say in downtown Toronto, these homes are older, they take longer. So budget 3 hours for sure. So I'm looking at the structural elements, the exterior, that includes the siding, but also the grading and the landscaping and how it impacts the house. I'm looking at the roof and the attic, both for the condition of the exterior, the shingles, as well as the structure, making sure that it's standing up properly. I'm looking at the plumbing, checking all the fixtures, making sure that the flow is good, the drainage is good. I'm looking at the major system components, your furnace, your boiler, your air conditioner, these things, making sure that they fully operate. Some things are limited by winter time. I can't look at air conditioner in the winter, for example. The electrical system, I'm doing a random check of switches and plugs throughout the house, and I open the electrical panel. I'm looking at this is something that differentiates Housemaster from many of our competitors. I do look at built-in kitchen appliances, and that's a value that a lot of home buyers appreciate, is that I look at the appliances. From a seller's perspective, it's great, particularly if you've updated those, a selling feature. Okay? When I come across new appliances, 1 to 2 years old, I try to mention that in the report. Okay? Same with all other major system appliances, air conditioner, furnace, roof. If I know that it's, anywhere between 1 and 3 years old, I try to mention that. And that can be a selling feature as a seller. Okay? And then also I look at the garage. I even look at detached garages, by the way, because most garages in downtown Toronto are detached. The reason I mention that is because some home inspectors, officially, they don't have to look at detached structures. We don't. So some people take it upon themselves not to. But everybody has a detached garage in downtown Toronto, so I look at it for sure. So preparing the home for a home inspection. There are several things that you guys can do and you can advise your clients to do when you're preparing for a home inspection. So, as I mentioned, I'm looking at the major elements, and I'm looking at switches, plugs, all this kind of stuff. Taking care of any small things that might get reported ahead of time is good because it doesn't litter up the report with a lot of little things that can be, that can cause alarm with a buyer. It's amazing that I can tell a buyer that their air conditioner is on its last legs, but they get hung up if, a handle's broken on a doorknob. You know what I mean? So these little things that you can replace quickly and easily, maybe even yourself, really good to tidy up the house before I get there to make sure that the inspection runs smooth and there aren't any small little things that get identified. So repairing broken, damaged, missing items such as doorknobs, locks, broken window panes, damaged screens. I'll tell you, I don't report screens. That one's in there for other parts of the country. Missing chimney caps or flues. Just these little things that, like when doors don't open and close, they're not operating properly, people get hung up on. Cleaning rain gutters, making sure the downspouts are directed. Again, this is like, some elbow grease and under $50 worth of repair from Home Depot to go and like re-divert these downspouts. Replacing burned out bulbs. Recently did a condo. It did have some electrical issues, but many of the light bulbs were burned out. This townhouse was on the market for 3 months, and during that time it was vacant, they left the lights on the entire time. So many bulbs were burnt out, so I can't check those bulbs. It causes the home buyer to question, is this a broken fixture, or is this a burned out light bulb? We just don't know. Okay, so replacing any burned out light bulbs is a good idea. Having HVAC service equipment, I'm going to open up that furnace compartment. I'm going to run that AC. I'm going to look at the AC. If the vents are all full of dust and dirt and leaves or pine needles, if the furnace compartment is full of dust, or the filter is full of dust, or it has rust in there, that is going to be an immediate red flag. So having that annual service inspection, about a $250 expense for a furnace, for example, could be well worth it to make it present as best you can. Okay, and moving any wood or stored items away from the home's foundation or other places that I need to look at. It is very disappointing for a home buyer when I can't get into an attic or I can't get into a crawl space because they're blocked, or there's a piece of equipment or a vehicle, or it's locked. Having all those things open and accessible helps me to do my job and helps them to be rest assured that it was looked at and they know what they're getting into. This is a good place to mention that people think about it for a second. What are you scared of? Are you scared of the known, or are you scared of the unknown? Most people are scared of the unknown. If I get into that attic and it has mold in it, they at least know that it has mold in it. Okay? And then they can deal with that mold. We'll talk about it. Talk about the expense, the remediation process, who they can call. I have people to give them. But if I can't get in that attic, they're wondering, is the home seller hiding something in that attic? You know? So having all those things accessible really goes a long way to helping your home present as good as possible. So preparing the home to be inspected. I think this is basically a repeat of what I just said, or just an addition. Yeah, make sure the electric is on, the water is on, the gas is on. Occasionally I will go and the water is completely shut off in the house. I can't test any of the plumbing, okay? Because I will not turn on plumbing. There might be a reason that the water is turned off. You might have been doing a repair. If I turn it on, I could flood the basement. This has happened to people in the past. So these are things that home inspectors, they don't usually turn on, things like water valves or gas, things like that. Make sure the pilot light is on if your heater has that, or your fireplace has that. I do fireplaces. That's pretty common for a fireplace to be turned off, particularly in the summertime. I will execute the pilot light, but other things no. And inform us of any non-functioning equipment. It could be that dishwasher is broken, and you're not going to replace it. You're just selling the house as is. Well, tell us about it. You trust me that if I am informed and I tell the home buyer, or I put it in the report, the dishwasher is non-functioning. It won't be replaced. It's just, that's the way it is. It seems it's coming from an authority. It seems normal. It seems like, hey, this is just the deal. Whereas if I try to run it for 5 minutes and somebody's trying to question, like, what are they trying to pull over on me? So informing people if things don't work. What I love from real estate agents is when they might put a sign like, please don't run this, or please, the fireplace has not been serviced this season. Please don't use the fireplace. It will be serviced before the sale. That's a great way for you to earn some credibility and earn some goodwill with the people you're selling to. Okay. So, the last 24 hours, what to do right before the home inspection. There's a few things to do and not do right before a home inspection to make it easier for me, and to make it present better. So don't use fireplaces, stoves, or ranges. It's difficult for me to test those things if they were recently used and they're hot or dirty. This happens more with ovens and ranges, for example. I might come in and they have like a turkey being cooked. obviously they're cooking a turkey, but I can't test the oven in the same way. Pets, this is a big one. Please take them out of the house. Oftentimes people want to put a pet, they're well-meaning people, they put their St. Bernard in the furnace room, thinking that they're like putting it out of the way, but then I can't test the furnace or the water heater or the electrical panel's also in there, the laundry's also in there. These are places I can't look at. Sometimes it's in the bathroom, so I go into the master bathroom and they're there in the tub. I can't test the jacuzzi tub with the St. Bernard in there. However, some things that you can do, leave your dirty dishes in the dishwasher. I am going to test that dishwasher. So might as well save water, have it run all at the same time, and turn off any sensitive electronic equipment, and save all computer files, okay? Now, I do not, I test GFCI plugs in kitchens and bathrooms. Usually those don't have anything plugged into them. I do not test AFCI plugs at electrical panels for that exact reason. Okay? There have been cases where people have tested AFCI. They're very similar to GFCI for those who don't know, but they're at the panel and they have a push button to test them. And people have turned off important equipment like a wine cellar refrigerator, dialysis machine for somebody. You know what I mean? Like bad stuff. So, but long story short, accidents do happen. I do take the cover plate off of an electrical panel. Occasionally, very occasionally, 1 out of 100 times, a breaker will flip. I'll bump it with the door, or just the sensitivity of the shape of the panel will just make it flip. So I wouldn't want to ruin somebody's work. So please make sure that any sensitive electronic equipment is turned off.
Hey, sorry, AFCI, what is that exactly?
AFCI is very similar to GFCI. It stands for arc fault circuit interrupter. So GFCI is a ground fault circuit interrupter. They have similar. So AFCI it's primarily for bedrooms, but now it's being used in other areas of the home. And in new construction, it's almost used almost every part of the home. But it's basically for lamps and cords that are ungrounded that may get an arc fault. In other words, an arc of electricity jumps from the hot to the neutral. And why does that happen? Because cords get cracks inside the cord and the electricity bleeds through those cracks, and that could cause an electrical hazard. So that is to prevent that. In bedrooms, because that's where we find things like table lamps and alarm clocks and things that are ungrounded. And so that's why that was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't that by code now that they have to be installed, I think, right?
Correct. In new construction.
In new construction.
In new construction.
Or renovations.
Or renovations. But that is code compliant renovations. And, we all know that sometimes homeowners do corrections that they do not need a permit for, but they are allowed to do because it's the homeowner doing it. Granted, homeowner shouldn't do his own electrical work.
Exactly.
That said, I do some of my own electrical work, but I feel like I'm trained to do it. Yeah. This kind of goes along with the 24 hours. Unlock, remove any locks from gates and fences. I don't check gates and fences, but I do need to get to the backyard. Move any stored items, we already went over that. Clear any under cabinet areas. I do want to look at the drainage of sinks. I will move a homeowner's stuff gently and gingerly, but I don't want to make a mistake or break anything that's sensitive. Remove any items that may restrict access, particularly to attics. We all know that homeowners want to get everything out of the way, and a closet is a good place to do it, just not the attic closet, because then I can't get up into the attic. Make sure the electrical panel is accessible. I would say probably about 10% of the time there is a washer dryer in blocking the electrical panel. I can't, even though the electrical panel may be accessible, if I'm to lean over a metal object and I was to get a shock, it could travel through my body and not to the ground, but through my insides into the washer dryer. So please make sure that those are accessible. or similar things. Sometimes electrical panels, believe it or not, people put a lock on them, particularly in rental properties, for good reason, but for me, I can't do my job. And deactivate any security systems. This doesn't happen very often. People know about this, but occasionally an alarm will go off and I will get a God voice coming from whoever deals with that, and I'll have to tell them why I'm there. Also, what's becoming increasingly prevalent, this isn't bad, it's not going to hurt anybody, but a lot of people have Alexa or Google Home. And occasionally, just through the conversation, it will set off things in the home. It will set off alarms, or it will set alarms. Sometimes when I'm doing it, I'll set an alarm for myself. I'll set an oven for 10 minutes, or to 350. I'll say, Google, set a timer for 10 minutes, so I don't forget about the oven, so I shut it off before I leave the house. And it sets off some kind of timer in the whole house. So maybe turn that off if you have that. But that's really not a big deal, but just kind of more of a funny anecdote. So what's next? So you guys have prepared, I've come in, I've done the inspection for your seller. After the inspection is completed, they'll receive my report in about 24 hours. They will actually walk out of there, I review everything with them. They will walk out of there fully informed, but they will receive the paper report within 24 hours, okay? You will, what does it say? Okay, and I've answered any questions regarding the conditions. Generally, you will get the results of the inspection, and then you'll need to deliver some feedback to the buyer, or you'll receive the feedback from the buyer and you'll want to know how to move forward. So, you'll be reporting this to the seller in this particular situation. As I mentioned, sellers are sensitive. This is their house. They've probably lived there for a long time. They've invested money, they've invested time, they're sensitive about it. You guys are professionals. You know that you need to tread lightly. You know you need to deliver this news softly. It's good to get ahead of it, as I mentioned at the beginning. Let them know, don't take it personally. There's going to be flaws. All homes have them. And get them ready for whatever might come.
Do you put together like a one-page summary of your report?
My report comes with an automated summary of the defects, the most significant defects, not all the big ones. Not all the small ones. And so the answer is yes. For pre-inspection, I'll get into that a little further. I do offer a service for an additional fee where I will generate what I call an overview. You may have seen this from other suppliers. They do something similar. It's basically every major section in 2 to 3 sentences, but it's done by me, not by a computer. So I take my time with it, and the reason I do that is to give a snapshot of the entire home in an unbiased way. So it kind of mentions the goods and the bads. Like I said in the report, if I'm seeing something new, I will mention that it's new and that will get in the report. If something is good, but it is not new or exceptional, let's say, it doesn't get that kind of treatment in the report. That just is not the format. This is a technical document. So what the overview does is it basically is a way of comparing apples to apples and giving a fair depiction of the house. But I do charge for it because it takes an extra time. I charge $50. $50. It's about a 1-page. And what I've noticed that some agents do is that they either present that to a buyer or they put that on the coffee table at their open house. And then if the buyer wants to see the fully completed report, then they can request that. But like I said, it's a nice way of getting out in front of it and giving a more unbiased approach. Now, if you have a new home or a very newly renovated home with very few problems, it is not worth the $50. I would say that it's more a home that has a few significant defects or is as is and needs some TLC. The overview will reflect better on that house. Yeah. Coming back to this, prepare your clients. Try to steer them towards the land of reason let's make this a business decision. Are we going to accept the offer? Are we not? Are we going to concede their concessions? Are we not? What does it mean money-wise? Let's not take it personally, okay? And then focus on your next steps to share that response with any buyer. This is very general, but I guess maybe I'm just curious. There's only 4 of us here. What do you guys do when you're selling a house and you have an issue and maybe you didn't know about it, but a buyer comes back at you? We can just share our own experience, if you guys like.
Well, so for example, if I've had a pre-listing inspection in the past, and let's say the inspector came in, he found some things, but sometimes he's found things that my buyer didn't know about.
Yeah.
So he has a lot, so for example, so house in Mississauga, apparently it was wet along one side of the walls in the basement.
Okay.
I went to the buyer, and there's no way I've never had a leak. Okay, well, the guy found it. So when later on,
You mean you went to the seller?
Yeah.
Okay.
I started selling it.
Yeah.
And then the buyer's like, and the seller's been like, this never happened. Well, what happened was during the winter time, the eavesdropper would come off and it was right.
There you go.
So what happened was they rectified that. The inspector came back and he just indicated that it was taken care of. So
It tested dry.
It tested dry.
Yeah.
So sometimes that has happened where, either that or he's like, you know what, I could write this down, but you know what, fix this, I'll come back and say it's fine. So that's how I've dealt with it sometimes in the past.
Okay.
On the because sometimes they don't even know there's anything wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And they would like to remedy it. But
Of course. I'm talking, of course, just to be clear, we have talked about pre-inspection. I have all my pre-inspection stuff up. But this has been more from the perspective of, you guys are the sellers, but I'm acting as the buyer's home inspector. So this is kind of trying to prepare you as sellers for what another home inspector might find. But yes, to your point, I will talk about pre-inspection, and I do offer that kind of services.
so because you're saying if we're our seller agent
Yeah.
and someone else is coming.
And somebody else is coming back to you. So what would you do in that kind of situation? So you didn't have a pre-listing. The buyer went out and got a home inspection. The home inspector comes back and says, hey, there's water in the basement. We're still interested in the house, but we think we're going to need to do $20,000 worth of repairs to the exterior foundation. Like, how do you guys deal with that?
It depends on
Yeah.
the interest of the house.
Yeah.
There's a few people that are interested.
Mm-hmm.
They basically take it as is, they just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
But you negotiate, you figure
Yeah.
you try to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. I would say in your situation, I would say, hey, listen, they've never had water in the basement. It looks like this is purely because of a gutter issue or a downspout issue. We fixed the downspout, but you know what I mean? Like there's some logical reasons to deal with that.
Okay, so to that point, so
Yeah,
for
yeah.
example, this house that I have coming up on the market, and so I know that the basement is showing, what's that called on the wall?
Efflorescence.
Right?
Yeah.
So because about 4 years ago, when that huge flood happened,
Mm-hmm.
the water was coming in through people's windows, right? That was like a storm like no other
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And will probably never happen again.
Yeah.
So it's still there, and it is what it is. Some inspector's going to come in and go, oh, there's water in the basement, that must flood there all the time.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't, and
Yeah.
right. So when you like someone says, oh, we're going to need $20,000 to dig around.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
So
isn't efflorescence actually almost in every basement that isn't finished? I mean, it just seems like it's there a lot.
Well, frankly, it's in every basement that's finished, but you just can't see it
You just can't see it.
because it's behind the walls. I'll tell you what I say about efflorescence is that it is an indication of moisture, but it isn't an indication of running water. So brick and block and even concrete is going to absorb moisture and it's going to transfer through. So I try to let my clients know about it, both buyers and sellers, but efflorescence, I say, this is an indication that there is moisture present, but it doesn't mean that there's a moisture problem.
Because I think
You know,
that's
I mean-
like the biggest thing. I've got some buyers I'm working with right now, and every home inspection report, we always go back to the basement with the water,
Yeah,
right? And we had actually in one home exactly that problem,
yeah,
right? And I mean, we could see the water, and she happens to be an engineer, so
Yeah.
she's got a little bit of a clue, right? And they said, oh no, it was fine, it was from the roof and the gutters and all that stuff. And she
Yeah.
goes, can I really be sure of that?
yeah.
I can't guarantee anything, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't have the inspection, the inspection report was absolutely horrible. It had a picture and said, oh yeah, there was some water here, but it's dry today.
What about when you do a moisture test in the basement? Is it on the floor? Is it usually will be moisture there?
I do not do a moisture meter on concrete, brick, or block.
Because
It naturally absorbs moisture. Like it will always come back positive for water. And I find that to be, it is true that there's water there, but I find that to be a really bad indicator of a water problem. You see what I mean?
Yeah, we had that scenario
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
inspector was saying, well, there's moisture in the basement, because there was an issue, question whether there was flood or anything like that, and it was just moisture
Yeah.
from the basement. But it really puts up a big red flag
I'll
to
tell
the
you,
buyer.
when I first started home inspection and I got my moisture meter, I used it on everything because I wanted to learn the tool and I wanted to know what was available. The other common home inspector mistake that some people make is, do you know what's right here in this corner?
Yeah, the metal.
Metal. So they'll like bring it across there, they'll touch metal, well guess what? The metal's going to do the same thing that the water is. So it comes back positive for water, there's no water there, it's just metal. So that happens around windows and doorways a lot. And so it's the same with, and I didn't learn that from trial and error. That somebody taught me that when I learned how to use the tool. But I found that every single piece of concrete block and brick that I came across always was testing wet. And so it is not a good indicator. And I would tell your home inspector that. But that being said, like, and I don't do it in a home inspection because as soon as a buyer hears that beep, they're gonna flip. You know what I mean? Anyway, what were you gonna say?
The other thing too, is depends on the area you're working too.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you've got a house, and because again, I know that area and I know the houses,
Yeah.
that during some of the 60s and 70s when they were built, mostly the 70s, a lot of times in the semi, they all have mold in the roots, right? And it's not, like, I guess, a bad mold, but it's when they built those homes, and remember when the when they started putting too much insulation in and they started covering all these vents
Yeah.
and then the mold came, so people see the mold and they start panicking when it's like, no, it's not because of the mold, but
Yeah.
because of that era where
Yeah.
everyone was trying to save energy and really
Yeah.
it was worse. So,
Well, I would say they should deal with the mold.
right.
They should clean it so it doesn't come back. But you're exactly right of why it happens and why it did happen. The big thing is to clean it so it doesn't come back. Because if water is reintroduced there,
Exactly.
then
seep
it
over to the
will
roots,
restart.
Yeah.
So and it
Also
will.
the time of year, right, where they'll see it there and then in the wintertime and then in the summertime it starts up again. Right?
Well, it can't. You're right that mold needs 20 to 30 degrees C to live. So when it's the wintertime, it goes dormant. But if it is visibly present in the summertime, it's just going to start again. So the real important thing is not only to clean it, but to clean it with a reputable company that will clear those soffit vents. Because that's the issue, what you mentioned. You guys know this, you stuff up too much insulation, it blocks the soffit vents, and then the attic can't vent, and that's where that mold is coming from. But yeah, like it's something to take care of. It's definitely a health risk. Varying opinions on how big of a health risk it is for some people, but it's something that people should take care of. The expense is not that great.
But some of the homes are like 70% of the homes in the area have.
I would say that those bungalows with the pretty low sloped
semis and
roofs
stuff, yeah.
in the semis and the split level homes particularly, it's very common amongst those. I would say it's toss of a coin. I would say about 50% of the ones I go into. But I do always recommend that you get rid of the mold because, and for your perspective, both as a buyer's agent and as a seller's agent, it's best that we tell them they should get rid of it, and they make the decision. If they don't, then they've been informed.
It didn't cost very much. My client did, I think, they did it for like $3,000 or something, like $3-4 grand.
Yeah.
They went in, I think like a freezing substance or something.
They used to use dry ice blasting. Now there's still some places that use dry ice blasting. Others use a different chemical process. The people that use the newer chemical process say that dry ice blasting just displaces the mold, it doesn't kill the mold. So basically it shoots it off of the the sheathing, which is where it collects, and then it just puts it all on the insulation. And I've never seen this myself, but I trust these people because they do a fair amount of work, not for me, but for my clients. And that mold they've gone into attics where there's just mold all over the insulation.
Oh, yeah. See, my client, what they did was they actually took care of the thing, it all dropped, and then they sucked all the stuff out.
Oh, okay, well that's what you would want to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you would want to do.
So that literally took everything out. But it wasn't.
It sounds like they did a good job. Do you know what the company was called? Yeah. I recommend 3 companies. I'll tell them to you right now since we're talking about it. HIP. HIP, Mold Professionals. And then, what is it? SICK Buildings Solutions. They're out. SICK, SICK Building Solutions. And then Canada Restoration Services.
Which one was the last one?
Canada Restoration Services. Those are the 3 I recommend. And the first 2, I think, focus on attics primarily. Canada Restoration Services does it all. So if you had a flooded basement, they would probably be the preferred vendor to call. Which I can't.
I see the truck, they do like fire restoration also, all that kind of stuff.
Canada Restoration Services? I bet they do. I bet they do.
Yeah.
I bet they do. I'm going to move on. But I think this is valuable for people. I always like to hear how people handle that kind of situation, and we can learn from each other as professionals. So, we've talked about what happens when a home inspector comes in for a buyer to look at your listing. Now, let's talk about how you can get proactive and get a pre-inspection to get ahead of things. So, it's definitely most of my business and most home inspectors' business are working for buyers. So that is the dominant paradigm. We're seeing home inspections conducted by buyers. But you can perform your own inspection, a pre-inspection, prior to listing it for a couple of different reasons. One of the big reasons is to get ahead of things, so you kind of know what to look at. Some people get a home inspection just to know what's going on. I deal with, probably once a month, a death in the family, and the children are selling the parents' home, and they hire me just to know what they're dealing with. This home hasn't been touched in 50 years, and they just want to know what their liability is, what kind of things they have to disclose, what things they may want to fix, okay? And so half of those people, I come back and they fix things, and I do a re-inspection and I update my report for them. Others, they just wanted the information, they sell it as is, or maybe they fix things, I never hear from them again. But it's to get a perspective.
When you do the re-inspection, what do you charge for that?
It depends on the amount of work to be done, but I would say in general, it's $150. And in general, that covers about 3 things. You know, looking at 3 areas.
So you rewrite the inspection report the flaws that you saw the first time around were corrected, you just present a new inspection?
No, I update the 3 areas, 1 to 3 areas that I talked about. Usually it's no more than that. If I was to do the whole home again, like it was fully renovated or something like that, it would be a new inspection.
Right.
You know, it's a new home. But to answer your question, I think what you're really asking is, do I just give them a new report? So everything, I identify that it is a re-inspection, and I identify what I re-inspected. And depending on what that thing is, sometimes it just goes away. So for example, there's some outlets that were non-functioning. If those outlets work now, it's just, those are satisfactory outlets. Some things are more sensitive, like mold in the attic. So oftentimes with that type of situation, the original report would say there was mold in the attic, you should have this investigated, you know? If I came back and I was to re-inspect, this is what happens the most, is that I re-inspect an attic with mold. I have a default comment that says something like, came on this date, mold was in the attic, I returned on this date, the homeowner provided me with the receipt from the supplier that cleaned the mold, and I have to take, because it is a health hazard, I have to be a bit safe as a third-party contractor. I said something to the effect of, while I can't verify someone else's work, You know what I mean? It appears that the mold has been cleaned, and they provide me this receipt. Here's the receipt. You can give me the receipt. I'll include it as part of the report, or oftentimes they give you a certificate, like a clearance certificate, and I'll include the clearance certificate. Like, please see attached clearance certificate.
How long is your inspection before?
Do you want to see a copy of my inspection? Here, I brought it. I think. Did I?
Maybe not.
Oh, no, I did. You asked how long, how many pages?
No, not physically how long is it good for? Like,
How long is my
you know,
inspection good
is
for?
the,
Until the house changes.
well, you know, because some people say the inspection's only good for the day that I'm doing the inspection, if something happens the next day. And that's kind of been some inspectors'
Fallback.
fallback.
It's how they
Whereas-
protect themselves.
And then I know there's some people now, inspection companies that are saying, no, we're good for whatever, the time period, so how long is it?
So I would say that I have another one as well. I would say the closest thing, and I have another one in case you want to look at it. So this is similar. It's not quite the same thing that you're talking about, but it's very similar. Housemaster offers our repair reimbursement guarantee. So I know this is about pre-inspections, but it does play into the pre-inspection a bit, and I'll get to that in a minute. This is the way our guarantee works, is that if I mark something satisfactory in the report, I'll just show you this because it'll help you understand, is okay, so see there's categories here: satisfactory, fair, poor, not applicable, not inspected. So it all has comment, but it gives you a grade. So at a glance, you can really see what got downgraded and then what to look at, you know, as far as a problem goes. So if I mark it satisfactory, it's applicable to our guarantee minus certain exclusions and limitations that we have in our guarantee contract. The way the guarantee works is if I marked it satisfactory and it turns out to fail, breaks down, leaks, something like that, I'll pay up to $1,500 to repair that item after a $95 deductible. That is good for 90 days from closing or 120 days from the inspection, whichever happens first. So 4 months from the inspection time or 90 days from closing, whichever happens first. So if you get the inspection 2 days before closing and then you close, it's 90 days. But if you get the inspection and then there's a month, you know what I mean, and then you close.
Sorry,
It's
that's included with the price of the inspection, or that's an additional?
No, that's included with the price of inspection. That is just part of our service.
Okay.
There's no extra charge for that. That is good for buyers only of resale single-family homes. So it does not apply for apartment buildings. It does apply for condos. It does not apply to rental units. And it does not apply for sellers, only buyers. Okay? But if I do a seller inspection, pre-inspection, I'll come back for the buyer for half price, and they get it. The buyer does. Buyer pays for it, you guys don't pay for it. Okay. So that's the way it works. So is what your other home inspector told you correct? Yes, it is. But is Housemaster willing to take the chance based on our experience and our expertise and the way we see something operating and give you 90 days? Yes, also. Right? Things are subject to change. You know what I mean? Homes change. You know, downspouts fall off and you flood a basement. Things like that happen. Okay? So as a home inspector, we really can't be responsible for that because it's out of our control. That being said, we look at the home as a system, and we look at the systems, we put it through a test, and then we write off on it, and we'll give you 120 days from the inspection or 90 days from closing. So that's a little better than nothing. I know it's not a guarantee. I know it's not forever, but it's better than most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking a bit about pre-inspections, why to do it. I left off with, you want to know the information. The other reason is because you want to get rid of those conditions, right? Okay? Homes that get a pre-inspection, oftentimes people don't get another inspection, right? They go with the home inspection that they see. They accept it. Okay, so by doing so, your home will sell faster and for more money. It's very similar to staging. Homes that get pre-inspections have been shown to sell faster and for more money. Okay, the other thing is that as I mentioned, you can always offer it up. I provide signage for you to let buyers know that this can hang from your realtor sign, to let buyers know, you have the yard sign, to let buyers know that the home has been pre-inspected, and then I will come back for them for half price. Okay, so if the home inspection costs $395, I'll come back for $195. If it was $450, I'll come back for $225. You know, something like
What
that.
are your prices?
Those are roughly my prices. So new homes, like single family, 2,000 square foot and under, new home. By new home, I mean 1970 to today. You know, less than 50 years. It's going to be $395 plus HST. Anything over 50 years is going to be $445 plus HST. So your home you're talking about in Etobicoke, that would be $445, I bet. Unless it's more than 2,000 square foot.
It was built in 1962.
Yep. So it'd be $445. So unless it's over 2,000 square feet.
Unless they want $100.
Pardon me? Unless you want $100. Unless you want $100. One of you guys is gonna. So you know, it's based on square footage. It's based on extra units. If I do triplexes, quads. I'm doing a quote right now for a 19-unit apartment building with 2 commercial units. That's something you have to. That's something you have to call in. We have to.
Sorry, do you have an email version of this?
Yes.
So we can send it to people that ask.
Yeah, yes, I can provide you with, you know, I'm going to shoot a follow-up email to you. If you guys are interested in seeing a sample report, just shoot me back an email. Say, hey, can I see a sample report? And I'll send you that. And I can send you one with the overview as well.
Did you shoot this presentation as well? Or?
I won't send you the whole presentation because it's a very large file, if you can imagine. But what I have done is I've generated an email that kind of has the main points, and it has a PDF which gives you the highlights, how to prepare for your seller. Yeah. So that will be coming to you for sure.
Question?
Yes.
Just looking at this report here, is there like an easy way to see if there's like a recommended, you know, recommended fixing or whatever?
That house doesn't have a lot of recommendations because it was a pretty new house. But when I put recommendations, they're right here. So it gets the grade, and then, well, this one didn't. This one was not inspected, so it tells you why. Let me give you an example.
Do you have
Yeah,
estimated?
because I just like it when I look at it, there's an easy way to just quickly see the,
So for example, right here,
recommend,
the site grading here was kind of on the fair side. So it says the house is near a hillside, you might need to do this.
Ah,
So it gets right there underneath the line item.
underneath, okay,
Yeah.
got it, okay.
Do you have estimated costs for certain things?
I don't put estimated costs in my report. I do advise clients as best I can, verbally or even after the fact. I always tell my clients, whether you want to call me 3 days from now or 3 years from now, I want to be a resource, so call me. Did you have anything specific in mind that you were interested in?
No, but sometimes, you know, on certain reports, I see that, you know, they'll say, oh, it needs a new furnace, right?
A furnace will cost
Whatever.
between $3,500 and $5,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If, you know, the furnace being kind of Google,
Yeah. Well, I try to review everything with my agent and the client on site, and those questions get asked, and then I just tell you. So I don't put them in the report. There's a couple different reasons for that. One of them is a liability reason. The second reason is because Housemaster has something that's coming soon, which is a real game changer. We've partnered with this insurance firm. They're insurance adjusters for all of North America. They're one of the first insurance adjusters. There's an incredible database of all the different claims, millions and millions of claims. They process something ridiculous, like 1 million claims an hour or something ridiculous like that. And so, long story short, we are bringing online what's called a repair list generator. And that's something that we're going to offer to our clients. It's going to be part of our delivery system. So when you get our report, you access it online. And it has different tools that you can use, you know, to like set yourself alerts for changing your furnace filter, or recall alerts. You can put in a serial number for like a piece of IKEA furniture or your furnace or whatever. In case there's a recall, it will send you out an alert. And amongst those different tools that are on our website will be the repair list generator. And what you can do is you can go in, it's in its beta testing stage right now, we saw this at our conference last year, is that you can type in an item and it will give you a quote based on your location. So you can imagine that something in Toronto costs more or less than it might in Alberta. So it gives you like regionally specific things. And so that's something that is not available now. I don't want to offer that up as a reason to use Housemaster, but it is something that is coming, and it's going to be something nobody else has. So that is another reason why we don't do that, because it'll be something you can access. But in general, people ask me a lot, what's a mold cost? What's an electrical panel cost? What's a furnace cost? All those things are just, call me anytime. Even if you're not doing an inspection with me, if you just want to know, give me a call, I'll tell you.
I have a listing that's coming out soon,
Yeah.
and I guess the house is probably around 80 years old. And it has the electrical panel has been replaced on the main floor, but there's a couple of still 2-prong plugs throughout the house.
Okay.
And I was told that it was built after, like, the knob and tubes, they stopped putting knob and tube in homes. But
That's incorrect, but go ahead.
Well, what I was told that it could be a house with no knob and tube and still have 2-prong plugs.
Correct, that is
Okay.
true. That is
so
true.
those plugs are going to be replaced to GFCI plugs.
Okay, that's
So
an acceptable way to do it. Yeah.
Okay, great. That's all.
Yeah, And you can do one of two ways. You can do the GFCI plugs at the outlet, or you can do the GFCI plugs at the box. Okay? I would do it at the box if I was you.
What do you mean when you say at the box? You mean
At the panel,
I know. When you say at the panel, what are you replacing there?
the circuit breaker itself. So the circuit breaker
Oh, I see.
has a GFCI built into the circuit breaker.
So you don't have to replace the plug if you
Exactly.
replace the. Oh, really?
Exactly. It's more costly to replace the circuit than it is to change the plug. It's cheaper to change the plug.
Right.
It's more expensive to change the breaker, but it's what should I say? It's a cost balance. How many 2-prong plugs do you have?
I think there's about 8.
Okay, well, it might be cheaper to do it at the breaker. It might be cheaper to do it at the breaker, because one of those lines might serve all 8 plugs. So then you're just doing one breaker. Granted, you could do just one GFCI plug and they're all daisy chained together. Ask your electrician. The reason I would say do it at the breaker is because then it is less obvious that it was changed. It is changed, so there is a sense of security that, hey, it has been updated. But, well, the other benefit is that it now becomes a 3-prong plug. So that might be a reason to do it,
Right.
because then it's more useful for computers and televisions.
Yeah, I was thinking.
So that's that, you know, so decide what your use is going to be and then decide what is the cheaper option. But you could also replace it to 3-prong but not have GFCI, have the GFCI back in the breaker.
Do you know the date when they stopped putting in knob and tube?
It was into the 50s.
50s,
Yeah. So I would say that is the stragglers. That is like not many. But I did like a 40s or 50s bungalow out in the Danforth recently, all knob and tube throughout the entire place. So, and that one was built in the 40s or 50s. So just it all depended on, you know, what electrician you're using, what kind of styles of
So
practices.
I always thought that was the giveaway, 2-prong,
Mhm.
then it's probably knob and tube, but obviously that's not the case.
No, because we were talking about her listing coming up. Her house was built in the 60s. I bet that there might even be 2-prong in your house.
No.
No, I guess it's been updated, but no, 2-prong. They just didn't ground things. It was a different system. It was still a single sheathed wire with multiple, like a hot and a neutral in it.
Right.
So not knob and tube, which is separated, but still just 2 lines, no ground.
And what about aluminum wire? Like, how can you tell if it's aluminum wiring without taking the panel off? Is there something?
Well, you can. It's hard. It's hard, particularly because the wire is aged. but you can, if you're not taking off the panel cover is the easiest way.
Right.
So so if you can't take off the panel cover, the washer dryer's in the way, I tried to look at the sheathing on the cable to see if it says AL, because that would stand for aluminum. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than CU, which would stand for copper. Yeah. So that's another way. The other third way, which I don't do, no home inspector does, I do this very rarely, unless I suspect there's knob and tube and I really want to find out for my client, and there's no other indicators, is you can take off a cover plate of an outlet or a electrical switch and see if you can see the wires.
So on the wire, it'll say AL, right on.
No, you look at the wire and it's silver instead of like orange.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah. It's silver instead of copper colored. Yeah. So that is another way. And some knob and tube, by the way, is aluminum. Some knob and tube is aluminum. So not only is it knob and tube, it's also aluminum.
So in some of the other houses that were when the houses were born in the 1960s, so some of them would have grounded outlets and some of them would have, in the same house, some of them grounded and some of them were not.
They've upgraded some of them.
Right. So
And
when
then,
people are upgrading, should they upgrade to 100, like the boxes? Because some of these houses still have fuse boxes. Actually, this house I'm talking
Is it 60 amp service?
Yeah, I think so. But,
I just did a fuse box yesterday and it was 100 amp service. So just because it's fuses doesn't mean that it's 60. It could be 100.
okay.
I've seen a 200 amp fuse box.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So long story short, if it's 60, you should definitely upgrade it. It's an insurance thing. Some insurers have.
And 100 is fine, most houses.
100 is fine for most houses. Yeah. I would say almost all houses. Almost.
Oh,
You know, like if you're getting above 2,000 square feet, you have to imagine that you have more appliances, and therefore you're probably gonna have more.
Or if you drive an electric car, you might want to go with a bigger one.
Yeah.
What?
If you drive an electric car.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do, maybe I should. That's a
So,
good point, right?
Of course.
but one last thing, oh sorry. One last thing that I wanted to say was, as far as two-prong outlets go, they will get flagged by a home inspector. But what I try to say, and what all home inspectors should try to say, is that two-prong is an ungrounded outlet, but it's not illegal and it's not inherently dangerous. Okay? So it is older wiring that you may want to be upgraded, but it's more of a convenience issue, right? The two-prong devices that we use very rarely are going to cause, are going to be dangerous. You know what I mean? So it's more, it becomes a convenience thing, and because of that, I point it out. But it's not a must.
Right.
You don't need to change that. You know what I mean? So it's just more to, you know, a convenience thing. Have people rest assured. The upgrade always makes people feel more comfortable.
I just want to be clear on this. When you said with you have that warranty for 90 days, if you get a pre-listing inspection through you, the buyer decides to have one at half price, they would get the warranty at half price?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're not buying the warranty, you're buying the service.
You're
And the
buying
warranty,
the
and the
service
warranty, and the guarantee comes with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're not buying the guarantee, they're just buying my service. It's a walkthrough inspection, takes half the time, so it's half as much money. But it's a great segue, because the last thing I wanted to say, the last good thing about the walkthrough is for you guys, if you've got the pre-inspection and they do hire me, no surprises for you. That's always the issue, right? What's the home inspector going to find that I don't know about? Again, unknown versus known. You know everything I said, unless you guys made any big changes to the house. You know what I mean? Unless you put insulation in the attic and made it turn to mold. You know what I mean? Like, it's all going to be the same thing. It's all going to be the same thing. So that's the other reason to get a pre-inspection. No surprises. Okay. We've talked about a lot of this already, but I'll just kind of go through this. You can address any defects before you sell, before you even list, okay? As I mentioned, I will come back for a re-inspection. You can eliminate last-minute price negotiation and reduce the possibility of buyers getting cold feet. So again, even if you're going to leave those problems in, say it needs a new roof. You're not willing to make that investment in the new roof, okay? You put it on the market, with the price adjusted to what it would cost. You know, you guys look at the comps, you know how to set your price. You're like, no, this is the price with the roof as is. Okay? Most agents understand that. You can reassure buyers that what they see is what they get. Again, maybe they know the roof is bad, but at least they know you're upfront about it. Okay? You reinforce the reputation of yourselves, the listing realtor, by demonstrating a serious intent of the seller to sell this property by putting it forward with, you know, probably by staging it and having the home inspection. You highlight the assets of the home by pointing out major systems that have recently been updated. Again, if you do have those benefits, remodeled bathroom, remodeled kitchen, new kitchen appliances, new roof, new furnace, new AC, I try to make those stand out for you. Okay? And you reduce your liability by having a third-party professional. Okay? So, do you guys ever worry about the buyer not telling you the whole truth about the house? I did a pre-inspection for an agent, and I delivered the agent the bad news that she had termites in the house. Okay? So, I bet that the seller knew that they had termites in the house, but they didn't let the agent know. It'd be really bad if they sold that house and the buyer found out they had termites, right? Better to put that up front. Better to what came out later after we discovered this was that the house had been treated and that they had a certificate from Aetna that they could put forward as a sales tool. Hey, this has been taken care of. But the agent didn't know about that until I did the home inspection. So on the flip side, what if they did have termites and they didn't let you know about it, but I also didn't find it? You're off the hook. How would you possibly know? The untrained eye. I'm trained to look for that kind of stuff. If I miss it, you certainly would have missed it. You guys are off the hook. Okay? So home inspection is a way of reducing your liability. Yep.
You check fireplaces as well?
I do a
Not wet, but like.
Exactly. So I do, so maybe you guys don't know the difference, but I do a fireplace, wood stove, gas fireplace inspection, but it is not a wet inspection, personally. If you need a wet inspector, I have a housemaster. I have 2 housemaster wet inspectors. They're the people that own Milton and Hamilton. They do my wet for me. So if you do have a client or you need one yourself, we can hook you up. Okay? Costs about, I think, $200, $250. The reason to get a wet inspection, it's a code compliant fireplace inspection. If you pass, you can reduce your insurance rates on your fireplace. So, do you have customers that need a wet inspection? Or you have a fireplace at your Etobicoke home?
Fireplace.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, okay. You have a gas insert?
no, like for wood. This is certainly the wood. Yeah, that's for wood.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's like a metal insert in a brick fireplace for wood. Okay, okay, understood, understood. Yeah, I would look at that. There would probably be, I don't start a fire, but I look at it and I you know, shine my flashlight up the flue, make sure that it's there and I can see light, that kind of stuff. All right, so we've kind of talked about this a little bit. There are certain tools that I give you to help you promote your listing. They're at your discretion to use. I find them to be a great little tool to kind of differentiate your listing from the block. You don't have to, from the rest of the homes on the block, that is. So you don't have to take them all. You can take them as you wish. This can hang underneath your realtor sign. Joshua Damdor in this office recently used this one for one of his listings that he sold earlier this year. I do give this to every one. You can put this on the coffee table near the binder. Every home inspection comes with a binder. So again, makes it look professional, makes it stand out. When people come, I've actually had somebody steal one of those from an open house recently. The agent was so pissed. She wanted
Steal what?
the binder. The binder. They took the home inspection out of the house. They thought, oh, this must be for me. So I gave her a new binder, but she was livid. She was like, yeah. So I paid for this home inspection, like what? So we have some certain tools to differentiate your home. I pointed out the different signs. The other thing I would say, I would put any documentation that you have to present to a potential buyer together in the binder to show them. I've done a couple of pre-inspections this year. Some older clients, very organized. They have every document for when they got a new roof, when they got a new furnace, when they got their new oven. And I was just like amazed. And it really helped me like pin down when the dates were and everything. But what a great resource to present to a buyer to let them know this house has been taken care of. And you know, oftentimes roofs are warranted for anywhere from 10 to 25 years, and that's transferable, so they have it all to give to the buyer. It's a great way to sell a house. And your report is uploaded to a password-protected website, so it's easy to share with any interested buyer. You could also easily download a PDF if that's your preference and shoot off a PDF. And by having your home pre-inspected for the like 17th time I've told you today, it'll sell faster and for more money.
Do you identify the age of like the furnace, the boiler, or all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I know that a lot of people don't. That is one thing that is very Housemaster. We try to estimate the age of the roof, as well as all the major systems. So that would be furnace, AC, water heater, and kitchen appliances.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't date range like the electrical or the plumbing.
No, of course.
You know what I mean? Things like
it's
that.
more the major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff's very difficult. So why use Housemaster if you guys haven't already, if I haven't already brought you over to using Housemaster? Why use Housemaster? We were founded in 1979. We're coming up on our 40th anniversary. We've been around for a very long time. We're one of the oldest and most respected names in the home inspection business. A Housemaster home inspection means something, okay? So I told you we stand behind our report with our guarantee. I'm not looking forward to, I do look forward to helping my clients. I don't look forward to paying $1,500 if I make a mistake. So I do a good, solid, thorough report. If you go to my website, the #1 word that people use to describe me is thorough. That's the Housemaster way. So when you present that to them, when you present that to a professional buyer, and we've been in the GTA for 20 years, by the way, so people know our name, that the Housemaster name means something, okay? We've done nearly 3 million home inspections. We have almost 400 locations in North America. We have E&O insurance and GL. Can you believe it? Home inspectors aren't licensed. You do not have to carry insurance to be a home inspector. It's kind of crazy. $1 million policy here. We require annual recertification. So while we do not have licensing, I am a certified home inspector, and I'm recertified every January. So I take a new test to make sure that I've learned all the new stuff, and also that I'm retested on all the old stuff, so I can continue to serve my clients and be informed and professional. I'll tag in onto that. We've also undergone professional communications training, so we know how to communicate to clients. And we have extensive technical support, so if there's something I don't know about, I have somebody to ask. We have a VP of technical sales who helps us out, and we back our report accuracy with our limited repair reimbursement guarantee. Okay, this is what I'm going to be giving you by email, how to pass a home inspection. This is something that I encourage you to share with your clients to help them get ready. Some other things, what do I want to say? We have a website with interactive guides on how to do repairs. Our report is completed on site, so we can discuss it with the client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, before I leave. We have the pre-inspection program I discussed, where we come back for a home buyer for a walkthrough. We have the referral liability protection, and we're certified again. A lot of repeating. I should update this. So, how can we help? You guys get it. We offer a positive approach. We try to reduce anxiety and avoid disappointment. You put people out. You put the honest deal out there. People appreciate that. And yeah, and that is the end of my presentation. Do you guys have any other questions?
If you're inspecting a triplex, for instance,
Yep.
how does it differ from inspecting a single-family residence? Like there's certain things you look for that you might not look for in a regular.
Well, certainly, like a triplex is basically just a big home, right? And from a buyer's or a seller's perspective, it's basically going to have additional kitchens, additional bathrooms, and sometimes additional electrical panels. Occasionally there's additional heat sources or additional water heaters, but I would say that's rare, because usually those are, what do I want to say, shared, you know what I mean? So, so those are the big things. It just becomes a longer report because it's reporting on more items, you know what I mean?
Is it more costly as well?
Yes, because I am doing those additional kitchens, additional bathrooms, additional electrical panels. Usually not full-blown panels, but subs. So I'm looking at subs in a normal house anyway, but usually they have their own personal sub. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's just a main breaker in the basement. The other thing that I do look for when I'm looking at a multi-unit property is I'm a little more sensitive about fire code. Now, I'll mention that home inspection is not a code compliant inspection. It's a bit of a common sense and safety inspection. So, do we mention smoke alarms and CO detectors? Absolutely. Do we point out where people need railings or fire exits and stuff like that? Absolutely. But I'm not saying you need to do this because fire code says, or you need to do this because Ontario Building Code says. You know, I'm not that kind of inspector. But one of the main things I find in a triplex in particular is basically it's a big home that's been cut up into several units, or it could have been built as a three-family home at one point, you know? But usually what happens is they have a central heating system, often a boiler, in the basement, and that definitely does not meet proper fire code most of the time. I'm not saying that everyone does, but it doesn't have the proper fire separation, it doesn't have the proper venting, it doesn't have the proper fire alarms. And so that is something that I am sensitive about when I'm looking at a triplex.
So in the boiler system, if there's a boiler system in a triplex, it's already against the fire, it's not, it wouldn't pass the fire code?
No, I'm not saying that just because it has a boiler doesn't mean that it won't pass a fire code. But usually what happens is that that basement was unfinished and then it was converted into living space. And everybody's been in a utility room, which is just studs, and it's the backside of a drywall type of enclosure.
Right.
It's supposed to have minimum two panes of drywall, okay, for proper fire separation.
Oh, for that unit.
And it's supposed to have a fire code door. It's supposed to have a solid core door with a self-closer,
Right.
and it's supposed to have that same drywall, two. So when you're thinking about a ceiling, that's one stacked on top of another. And, or if it doesn't have those things, it's supposed to have a sprinkler system. So that is something that when I'm looking at a multi-unit property that I do look at that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something that almost never passes. I just did a home like that, and not only did it not have that, essentially it was bad. Essentially, like the floor joists were open. It was like kind of open concept basement living, and occasionally I'll come across this where if you're a homeowner and this is just the way you want to have your basement, by the way, this is fine. It just is when it becomes a multi-unit property. But they have the open floor joists, and they might have a partition wall that comes up, but the joists go this way. So there's literally just a hole between the furnace and the living space. Yeah, that definitely doesn't need fire code.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, you need to have that enclosure in case there is that disaster. I'm talking about fire or carbon monoxide leaking, that it doesn't hurt your tenant. You know, so that is something. So that is and railings. I'm particularly sensitive to railings, bath fans. These are things that a lot of since I'm a landlord, I've gotten nicked on this because any of you guys landlords here?
No, I'm looking to be.
Yeah. Well, this is the first thing you learn is that your tenants, the first call they're going to make when they get pissed off at you is going to be to the city bylaw officer to come out and check out the property. So then they're going to fit you with a ton of work to do as a big FU for doing something they don't like. Yeah. Yeah. So
Do you do inspections for people that want to like be landlords? Like not maybe like a house?
What do you mean by that? Do I do like an inspection to see if it meets code?
Yeah.
Or do I do home inspection if they're buying a property as a
No, not
landlord?
just buying, but just like, for example, as an example, that house, I'm gonna be renting it out. Never thought about that until now, didn't you mention it? But to have someone come through and say, you know, they should be cognizant of, you're gonna be renting, watch for this, watch for that.
Oh, so you would just hire just for you,
Yeah.
for information as to what to do with that code?
I've never done that, but you know, maybe you can put a bug in the ear of Irene or Rick. I do have a presentation that I'm preparing right now for another office, and it's not done, but I'm going to be presenting at a Royal LePage office in June, specifically about secondary suites. And in other words, basement apartments, in-law suites, secondary suites.
That's a good one.
And so I'm doing that research right now, and then you can get all that information for free.
What's your best resource for finding all that information?
What's my best source for finding that
Yes.
information? Well, I'm a member of the Ontario Association of Home Inspectors, and so as part of that, I take occasional courses just to make myself a better home inspector. And so we talk about, like, I have a copy of the Ontario Building Code. I have a copy of like the fire code, like in my
Like
office.
all that
I occasionally like late night
on the
reading.
city,
Yeah.
right, on
Pardon
the
me?
city website, all those, the building codes and all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff.
On the
If
city
you wanna-
website.
If you
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to read through it and try to find it.
Yeah, but the problem is that the building code will say one thing and the fire code will say one thing. They don't always say the same thing. And the CSA, which is the Canadian standards, they say something else entirely. And you'd think that there would be one that would govern the other. You'd think the federal would take a priority over the other tiers, but it's actually the opposite. Where like they kind of set the baseline and then each one gets a little more specific. So, and it varies from municipality to municipality. But I would say that you definitely want railings on all your stairs. On an interior space, anything over one step, believe it or not, anything over one step must have a railing, okay?
Is
The
that
other-
code?
Correct, yeah. On an interior, on an exterior, anything over 2 steps needs a railing. So 3 steps needs a railing, okay? And the inside 2 steps needs a railing, that's a big one, because most rental properties don't have any railings on their staircases. You need to have your furnace fully fire separated, so that means drywall on the walls and the ceilings, okay? Or sprinkler system. Sometimes it's cheaper to put a sprinkler system in, believe it or not. And you need to have every unit needs to have smoke and CO, and those CO detectors need to be near the bedrooms, okay? So if you have a bedroom at the front of the house and at the back of the house, you're gonna need 2 CO detectors, okay? But you just need to have 1 smoke, okay? So make one of those a combo, make one of those just a smoke. Might as well buy a combo for both, but if you're really trying to like pinch the pennies, you can buy a single for one of
The
them.
problem with the dual ones, it's very
Yeah.
hard to know when the sound goes off, whether it's one or the other.
Well, either way, you know there's a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
Either way, you know there's a problem, and you want to have one in the furnace room as well. Yeah. So that is if it's you're going to have gas-fired appliances. There's no place in Ontario that uses electric heat, with the exception. Well, you know, I did do some electric baseboard heat. There's a couple townhouses down on Queen East that they're all electrical baseboard, but that's very, very rare. That's very, very rare. So those are like the really big ones. Entrances and exits are another big, but that is really on a case-by-case scenario. What is allowed, what is not allowed. You know, what forms a means of egress and what does not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where you need it, where you don't. Where a doorway is if you walk downstairs or if you enter. Like, because there's basements that are on a hillside, so they have different rules than ones that you go in and then walk into the basement. They have different rules. So, but essentially 2 means of egress. So a door and a window or 2 doors. So those are the big ones. Bath fan in every, bath fan or operable window in every bathroom.
And what's the size of the window? Is there a certain?
It is 48 square inches. 48 square inches. 48 square inches. So that would be, so 48 square inches. That seems incredibly small. It has to be more than
This
that.
small.
No, it's four square feet. 4 square feet.
Okay.
So would that be,
Even that's too.
Is that 2 by 2 then?
that's 2 by 2. But it doesn't have to be 2 by 2 because it could be 1.5 by,
All right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's four, I think it's 4 square feet. It's 4 square feet, which is not the same as 48 square inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, so it's 4 square feet. But yeah, that can actually be a really small window. 4 square feet and no dimension smaller than 15 inches. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can have a very long window that's 4 square
Oh,
feet.
right,
And it's,
right.
but the
Gotcha.
smallest,
Yeah,
you could not have it be less than 15 inches. So it could be 12 inches and super long. But that one, it has to be at least 15 inches. Okay? Because thinking that you get under the 15 inches, many people can't fit through that. So if they needed to get out. And you can't have like blocks or bars or anything on the windows. So some of these basement windows need that. The other thing, this is one that people don't think about. The windows need to be, maybe a window meets those requirements, but it's too high. So you need to have stairs to it. Or you need to have a small little step ladder to it. Because if it's above a certain height, then it might be like an old lady couldn't open that window and lift herself out, or a child. You know what I
Don't
mean?
rent it out to children or people?
Yeah, I have that in my lease. Like no 12-year-olds, no 12-year-olds. But I am preparing that presentation. These are some of the
that's a good.
these are some of the facts that I've come across. But yeah, like my tenants got pissed off. They called the bylaw officer. She wanted, lights. You need to have all exterior stairways need to be lit. That's another big one.
Right.
So you have an exterior stairway, but it doesn't have an automatic light that comes on. That is a tripping hazard. So I had to call an electrician. $500 later, I was done with that. But all the different things that they called me on, like probably spent like $2,500, like fixing the bath fans and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you saying?
Exterior, as in like outside, that's automatic come on?
Yeah, so I have a quad. It is a legal triplex. I call it a quad, but the basement is not used because the tenants called the city about the basement apartment, so they got kicked out. So so watch for that too.
They called. They were living in the basement, and they called, and they got people above.
The other tenants. Yeah, they're destroying people's lives, right? These people were living there before I even bought the place. And then they get kicked out because of these guys.
How long
Yeah.
have you had your tenants in there?
Well, they're out. I evicted them. They were
No,
causing too many
yeah.
problems.
How did you evict them?
They were damaging the reasonable enjoyment of others in the unit.
How long did it take you to evict them?
It was probably about a 6-month process, and that is quick, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they were causing too many problems. They were calling the cops on the other tenants. They were like doing all kinds of things. Like they brought bed bugs into the place. Then I have to pay to get rid of that. You will too. I had to pay to get rid of them. And here's the thing. That's what you sign up as a bed. That's what you sign up for as a landlord. So I didn't have any ill will against them for that. I was kind of annoyed because they were causing me a lot of other problems. Here's the thing. They left a nasty letter for the remediation company, the bed bug company, saying there are personal items in this property. If you damage this, you will be held liable. Blah blah blah. They looked at this like very litigious looking letter, and the bed bug people are like, "We're not going in there." We're like, "I'm sorry. I am American. I was going to American Thanksgiving, visiting my parents. I was like doing pumpkin shopping, like." With my mom, like, you know, it's some like fun thing with my kids, and I get this call from this bed bug company. They're like, "Sorry, Michael, we are not going in there." That was the main thing that I got them on, because they were impacting other people's health
Right.
by not allowing the bed bug company.
Did you inherit these tenants, or did you?
I did. There's good things and bad things about inheriting tenants. The best thing is that you have instant income. You're paying for that property right away. The bad thing is that you could have some really crappy tenants. All the other tenants were good, but here's the thing, even if you need to get tenants, it's only gonna be 2 months. So, depends on what your mortgage is, but in Hamilton, I bought my place for $300,000, so the mortgage was not huge,
$4 bucks, that's great.
Yeah. But now it's $3. That's the other big thing I would say, is that don't make any big changes for at least 1 year. So like, you buy it, you're excited, you want to take care of it, you want to build this, you want to build this, you want to get tenants in the basement, just wait for a year. Get to know the neighborhood. Because I didn't wait a year, and that's when my tenants got pissed off. That's when you get to know the neighbors, they get to know you, they start to warm up to you. If you just come in and start like having contractors out in front of your business, you're tearing things down, you're just not displacing tenants, but like I had to tear off the deck because it was a death trap, man. So like, I thought I was doing the right thing. They didn't like that they didn't have a deck anymore. Even though they only had to wait for 3 months, that's when they started calling. Because I did work. I would say, I would not have put that tenant in the basement. You know what I mean? Like, all these things that, he was living on a different level, I put him in the basement to kind of like rearrange the situation. And if I would have just held off, I would have found out about these tenants. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, you would have found out about the
That's good
neighbors.
advice, actually.
So just wait 1 year before you do big things. That's what I would say. Buy the place, get it growing, and then
Okay, great.
yeah.
That's
Anyway.
a great, actually, it's a great presentation
Yeah.
to do something on investment properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. I will do that. It's more on secondary suites. Before you guys go, I know you're busy. I'm gonna have one of these guys grab the card, and then we'll see who won the $100.